see any sign of the trail? No, I couldn't see anything. Snow blew around us. It covered the cliffside. It covered what we had thought was the trail. I could barely see my 22-year-old daughter, Alyssa, only 10 feet away. We were standing in deep snow on the side of a mountain in early September, in a blizzard on the side of a cliff in approaching darkness. Beside my right foot, a creek tumbled and rolled through a crevasse 100 feet below. We were completely alone, 5,000 feet above the town of Kandersteg, Switzerland, and no one knew where we were. In order to save weight, we left our flashlights and my wool gloves back at the hotel in the valley. My hands were freezing. The sun dipped behind a crest of mountains. Shadows disappeared. The snow on the hillside became flat and even. I couldn't make out any depression which would show where the trail was. How long since you were sure we were on it? I asked, trying to keep fear out of my voice. 5 minutes, 10. Mom, I thought I was on track. Alyssa's voice cracked with tension. I studied the mountain. I shook my water bottle to check the contents. It was almost empty. My mouth felt dry. With my hand halfway to my mouth, I stopped to think. I had to hold on to what was left for later. We were on our way to a mountain hut, a hut that was supposed to be an easy hike from the bottom of the cliff. I glanced at my watch. Lis and I had been hiking up a series of narrow switchbacks across a cliff face for over an hour, a trip that was supposed to have taken 45 minutes. There was no sign of the trail. I scanned the snow ahead. Okay then, I answered, trying to sound stronger than I felt. Let's turn back and trace our steps. We'll find it, I added. Inside, I prayed. Lis walked towards me. Her forehead was creased with lines and her eyes looked weary and scared. We backtracked through deep snow. In order to keep my balance, I had to shove my bare hand into the snow. My fingers became numb. Gusts from the ridges blasted us, threatening to throw us off. I glanced down and to the right. Anything? Lis asked, panic edging her voice. Not yet, I answered. I scanned the snow above, below, and across the hill and kept moving. It wasn't supposed to be like this. It wasn't supposed to be like this at all. We had taken a trail rated easy by the guides in Kandersteg. I had planned on showing myself that I was capable hiking alone with my daughter after my divorce from her father. We'd gone by 2 hotels, the first to have cocoa, and the second, during the storm, where I was sure they would let us stay for the night. But they chased us out of the hotel into a full-blown blizzard that swirled around their dining room windows. Even though we had tents and sleeping bags, we decided to head up the cliff from the valley to stay in a mountain hut. The sign at the bottom of the cliff, which we had barely been able to find in the swirling snow, had said it wasn't too far. I hadn't thought it was going to be this hard. I felt dizzy. I caught myself from falling by crouching down. I stopped, adjusted my soggy feet. I was barely balanced on the narrow trail, my boots slipping a little. Mom, Lisa cried, I can't even see where we've been. The snow was deeper and coming down hard. The solid, sweet little creek that had meandered around the valley floor now thundered below my heels. I looked away, concentrated on moving forward and up. The snowstorm picked up again, plunging us into flat light. I wanted to stop and drink, but couldn't afford the time. Wind blasted up the valley, pulled at my jacket. I braced myself against it. The pack on my back tried to pull me backwards. I had to lean forward to keep going. I couldn't see anything to follow. The hillside was as smooth and featureless as porcelain. Every step I took was one step away from the hut. My heart banged in my chest. Breathless, I scanned the smooth surface of the hillside. Can't you see anything? Lis called. Not yet, I replied. I was on my hands and knees scrambling, trying not to panic. My knees sank into the snow. I slammed each bare fist deep into the slope. I saw a slight depression in the snow and focused on it. I slogged in knee-deep snow, crawled on the ground. When I got to the depression, I scanned the length of it. A faint path led up and off and away, smooth and open and flat. It looked like a freeway, as clear and sharp as 5-lane Highway 101 back home. Up here, I shouted, feeling hopeful for the first time in hours. Lis reached me out of breath, her green eyes wide. Go ahead, I said. She took off and I followed. I heard the creek long before I could see it, a wild rushing different from the swoosh of the wind. My boots teetered above the creek on a narrow rocky ledge. I convinced myself that the narrow part would be over soon. Just a sec, Lis' voice caught. Not now, I answered, eager. Something different. It couldn't get any worse. She tended to exaggerate. I hoped it was one of those times. Cables ahead, Mom. What kind of cables? I stopped, hesitated. Too far up to go back down and make it before dark. I looked for answers in my daughter's kind face. Not so bad, come on. I walked up around the ledge and saw her, and an even narrower trail, now only 4 inches wide, was just beyond where I was standing. Hi, Mom, she said, and waved her red mitten, a beacon in the waning light, on the other side of an impossible stretch of trail. You can do it. I swallowed. I didn't think I could. Under my feet was air. Little knobs of rock, not as big as my knuckles, stuck out on the water-swept slope of 90 degrees. Jesus, then there was no trail at all. See the cable, Mom, on your left? I stared at Lissa. My knees were trembling. I turned and saw, eyeball high, a metal-twisted cable, cold and hard and stretched over the gap of trail. One end of it was bolted into the rock, the other disappeared in the dark. The metal was cold and taut. Liz held out one outstretched red mitten. I looked down to place my foot. The chasm and creek called from below, willing me to fall. I swallowed, stared at the rock in front of my nose, pressed my gut toward the cliff, checked on her face, wrapped my frozen fingers around cold metal, and one more sentence, and stepped out on a knob. 4 feet of air hung where the trail should have been.